Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're gonna go through my March TBR. I am so excited to get to share with you guys my March TBR because I feel like I haven't actually put out a TBR this year, even though I have in the month of January and in the month of February. I put out a TBR, but it was pertaining to the readathon that I was participating in. In January, I participated in TBR-a-thon, and in February, I participated in Get a Clue. And while both events were absolutely fantastic, I had so much fun. You know how it is when you're participating in a readathon. Sometimes the prompts don't line up exactly with what you want to read, and so you do have to adjust your reading a little bit. And so as a person who is a mood reader, even though I do usually schedule out my reads, I am a bit of a mood reader. I like to pick up things that I'm feeling in the moment. That's hard for me. And so I'm looking forward to a month where I can really plan out what books I'm really intrigued by. I also am excited about this TBR because it looks really nice as far as an even spread of genres. I have some fantasy books I'm going to get to this month. I have sci-fi and horror, and they're all pretty evenly distributed amongst those categories. So I like that, and I didn't plan it at all. I just started writing down books that I'm interested in, books that I have access to that I've had on hold and I'm waiting, but they will come in March, and it just happened to work out that way. So it's the beauty of timing, I suppose. So I'm going to start with the podcast book that I will be reading. Now, remember, I always read the podcast books a month in advance. If you guys are not aware, I do have a podcast with Leandra over at Leandra the TBR Zero. We both participate in the podcast called Not Reading for Content. It's a monthly book club podcast, and you guys are welcome to join us. The month of March, we will be reading the Games Gods Play, but I always read books a month early, so I'm reading our April book, which is The Hitchcock Hotel. So I will be reading this in March, but if you guys want to read along with us, you can read along with us in April. I'm not going to read anything into this because part of the podcast is Leandra and I will kind of go in a little bit blind. We know that this is a horror mystery because it is a genre blend. That's the first season of the podcast, but that's all I know. I love the cover. I'm excited about it. It gives me good vibes. Next, let's go through the fantasy books. And one of these you guys saw in my last video when I talked about my hauls. I have purchased Emily Wilde's 3, and I've not read it yet. And so I need to. My library actually has the audio, and I should be able to get the audio in March. And so I'm hoping to immersive read this, which I haven't gotten to do, I don't think, yet with an Emily Wilde's book. And so I am excited to finally get to this. If you haven't heard of Emily Wilde's, the first book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, where you're following a girl or a woman who is studying fairies. In her world, there are a ton of different fairies, and she is compiling information about all of the different fairies in her world into an encyclopedia, and she goes into kind of a dangerous area of fae and has to figure out how to get herself out of it. So this is just a continuation of that series, and I'm excited to get to it. The next fantasy book is actually one that I'm a little intimidated by, but I do want to give it a chance because I've heard amazing things, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven. The reason I'm intimidated by this is because I did not enjoy my time with The Sword of Kaigen. I didn't have problems with the writing, though. I think the writing was done really well. I just didn't like where the story went, and the fact that I personally don't see Sword of Kaigen as a standalone. I think that it was meant to be a series, and it was originally written to be a series, and the author did make a decision not to continue, which is totally fine. But I was very frustrated at the end of that novel because a lot of questions were left just open, and I don't think in a purposeful way. So yeah, anyway, I'll get off of that book. So because I haven't had good experiences with this author in the past, I am a little nervous to pick up their writing again. But like I said, it wasn't because I didn't enjoy the writing. It was because I didn't enjoy where the story went. So I'm hoping that this one will be better. Now, I'm also excited because this one features a woman who is kind of fighting against societal norms. She is a woman, and in this society, women are not meant to be magic users. She studies magic to become one of the high mages, gets to the highest level, but essentially is still kind of has pushback from the people she's working with. And instead of getting an assistant, ends up getting someone in the service industry. I think maybe they're a custodial worker. And this is supposed to be like a pushback against her, but you end up finding out more about that person as the story goes along, that maybe they have a little bit of history that could potentially help her in the long run. So I'm interested to find out. So we'll see. We'll see how this one goes. The last fantasy book is A Drop of Corruption, which is actually the second book in the Tainted Cup series, which I'm really excited about. This is a Sherlock Holmes retelling in a fantasy world where leviathans come out of the sea and attack cities, and it's just absolutely crazy. In this first one, there was a murder mystery that we're following where the people who create and engineer the walls that protect the cities from the leviathans were being murdered, and you had to figure out why. And so I don't know where they're going to take the story, but I'm excited because the world was just amazing, and I really enjoyed our Holmes and Watson character, which it was Den and Anna, but I still really enjoyed them. I thought it was a really fun exploration of a Holmesian detective story. I'll be buddy reading that with Julie from Keep Calm with Books and Coffee and Leandra from Leandra the TBR Zero. So I'm also excited to buddy read it. Speaking of buddy reads, I also have a buddy read with Coda from the Booktube Bestie. I believe we're going to be reading Rest Stop together in March. I need to confirm with Coda, but I'm pretty sure we said March, and my loan is in. So I'm excited about this one. This is Nat Cassidy's third book for me. I've read Mary and Nestlings. Both of those were 5 stars. And so I'm excited to get to Rest Stop. I don't know. I'm a little nervous about this one because this one does have a male protagonist, which is not his norm, at least for me. And I know that we're following a person who is literally stuck inside of a rest stop, and there are some really creepy things happening around him. I've heard mixed reviews about this book, but Nat Cassidy hasn't let me down before, so fingers crossed, I'm gonna love it. Next, we have a fantasy horror called Certain Dark Things. So I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but I am intrigued. Fantasy horror is something that I have enjoyed in the past, and so I do want to get more into that genre in 2025. I think that there are so many good books out there to find, and this one does sound interesting. It also has vampires, which can be hit or miss for me, but usually I enjoy what authors can do with the lore of vampires and how they live amongst humanity. So we'll see. This is the little brief synopsis of this. It says, welcome to Mexico City, an oasis in a sea of vampires. Domingo is a lonely, garbage collecting street kid, is just trying to survive its heavily policed streets when a jaded vampire on the run swoops into his life. Adel, the descendant of Aztec blood drinkers, is smart, beautiful, and dangerous. Domingo is mesmerized. Adel needs to quickly escape the city, far from the rival narco-vampire clan relentlessly pursuing her. Her plan doesn't include Domingo, but little by little, Adel finds herself warming up to the scrappy young man and his undeniable charm. So it sounds like maybe we have kind of a reluctant pairing too, which I do enjoy, and just to see the rival clans of vampires, I think is going to be an interesting time. Next, we have another fantasy horror with The Doll Makers, and I am so excited about this. First off, it's a standalone fantasy, which I love reading standalones. I love series, don't get me wrong. I'm a series girl 100%, but if I can find a fantasy standalone to pull people in, to lure people into the fantasy realm, I love it. And this one just sounds like it's going to be phenomenal. In this dark and enchanting standalone fantasy, discover a world centered around destructive, all-consuming monsters, the magical dolls designed to fight this force, and the artisans tasked with creating demon-slaying dolls. A touch cozy fantasy and a touch of horror. In the country called One, doll makers are vital members of the community. An artisan's doll is the height of society's accomplishments, while the guard's doll is the only thing standing between the people of One and the vicious, cobbled monstrosities that will tear apart any structure, living or dead, inanimate or otherwise, to add to their horde. First off, dolls are kind of creepy, and so the fact that we have dolls fighting monsters is a little insane, but I don't know. I think it sounds intriguing. I also heard Elliot Brooks. I had found this beforehand, which was really weird timing, but I think I found it about a week before I watched Elliot's video, and then Elliot in one of her new fantasy videos was talking about it and how she really enjoyed it, and so I think it's going to be a win. The last genre is sci-fi, and I'm excited, guys, that this month I can read chunky books and not feel like super stressed for time. And so I am going to take advantage of that and read Horror of the Ninth. I know this was on my TBR for February. I didn't get to it. It didn't fit any of the prompts. And I mean, reading this whenever prompts drop every 2 to 3 days wasn't super conducive to my mental health, and so I didn't get around to it, but I am excited. This is the second book in the Gideon the Ninth series. I'm not exactly sure what the series title is, but it's about necromancers, and in the first book you have a competition essentially that all these necromancers are competing to become a more powerful being, and they end up going to a world and trying to figure out what's going on, what's expected of them, what trials they have to face in order to become what they need to become more powerful. Gideon the Ninth was, from the original book, was just a very sassy character that had a different perspective, a different way of looking at her role, and seeing her relationship with Harrow develop throughout that book, and their histories, their backstories, their planet that they came from, and the rules of their planet, how all of the different kingdoms interact and have different ways of life, ways of necromancy, was really, really cool. Also very intricate. So I do want to make sure and continue with the series quickly. Hence why I want to continue it in March. Next, I have a sci-fi that I just can't get out of my mind, and I know I talk about it the same every time I talk about it, because it's for whatever reason, it gets stuck in my mind, and that's why I need to read it. And I think that it's also on my 25 and 2025, if I remember correctly, but that is The Ancients. So this is a 2024 release, I think. I'm pretty sure. It might be 2025, but I'm pretty sure it's 2024. And it is about a climate-ridden Earth. I don't know if it's exactly our planet, but it's similar. And you have 3 different people, or 3 different groups of people that you're following. You have a young boy and his sister who have been orphaned, left on their own. There are literally no humans around them, and they have to travel across kind of a deserted desert area to try and find humanity again. You have, I think, the mother of those children, who they don't realize is still alive, is taken, or was taken, into slavery and is trying to escape to get back to her children. And then you also have a kind of really privileged noble person that we're following, who I think comes upon hard times and has to figure out how to survive in this really harsh world. So I don't know why it sticks in my head, but it does, and I just think that I think it's gonna be an interesting time. And the last sci-fi on my list is Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I just want to read this because of the author. I don't know anything else about the book. Let's find out together. So here's the synopsis. They traveled into the unknown and left themselves behind. On the distant world of Kiln lie the ruins of an alien civilization. It's the greatest discovery in humanity's spacefaring history. Yet, who were its builders and where did they go? Professor Arton had always wanted to study alien life close up. Then his wishes became a reality in the worst way. His political activism sees him exiled from Earth to Kiln's extrasolar labor camp. There, he's condemned to work under an alien sky until he dies. Kiln boasts a ravenous, chaotic ecosystem like nothing Earth has ever seen. The monstrous alien life interacts in surprising, sometimes shocking ways with the human body, so Arton will risk death on a daily basis. I've loved Adrian Tchaikovsky's writing and service model, and so I do plan to just dive into his backlist, and this is one of them, so I'm excited to get to this. I also have 3 books that I won't be sharing with you that are for secret projects, so 13 books total on my TBR, but 10 that we've talked about today. I had 3 fantasy books, 3 horror or horror fantasy, and then 3 sci-fi, and then 1 mystery horror. So I think that this is a good mix of books. I'm really excited. I think that this is shaping up to be my best reading month yet in 2025, which is a high marker because I have had some really good reads this year so far, but I'm really excited. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what you thought. If you have a book that you were really excited to read in March, any of those things, I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below. If you're not feeling chatty, but you would like to let me know that you're here, leave me a little mushroom for Emily Wilds in the comments, just so I know that you're here with me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.